Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's live stream AMA. So there's, the sentiment right now, I would say across the industry is a little mediocre. So let's have a lot of fun today. Okay. Let's just have a great time. Okay. So if you have any questions, throw them in the YouTube live chat. We are seeing them live and we will pin them aside. And then also you can throw them in the Twitter live chat. Where we'll bring them up also. And you know what? Actually, I feel like maybe I'm actually going to talk about this. How are you? I woke up today with the worst anxiety, which kind of sucks because it's AMA day. Like I'm supposed to be on, it's AMA day, but I had a little bit of anxiety this morning. But after working for a few hours, I think I'm feeling a lot better. So thank you for asking. And the reason I even bothered telling you guys that is just for transparency. I think, we know that there's rough times out there right now. So let's just collectively, have a good time, feel better. And yeah, sorry. Okay. So a little bit different today. I asked on my Twitter earlier for what are your questions? And we actually pulled aside a huge list of them. So I'm going to bring up Luke, do a little spiel, and then we can dive into some of the questions that were asked on Twitter. And then of course we will bring up your questions also.
Hey everybody. Yeah. So I want to make a few points first before we dive into stuff. We'll go into some questions today. So yeah, it's interesting because market is in a scary place to a lot of people right now. And it's interesting because whenever there's a bad market, people start talking about the projects a little bit differently too. It's interesting because this is not Pixel's first market that there's been correction or anything like that. I don't want to call this a bear market yet because I don't want to wish that on anybody. But what I will say is in worse markets, this is actually when the teams who have something to prove end up normally really winning and building out market dominance. Last bear market in like 2022 to 2023, no one believed in pixels. Like we were not even like on anybody's radar at the time, right? And we came from this no-name team, like this nothing team, to being like a leader in Web3 gaming, just kind of crazy, right? So what's great about pixels in this market is, to be completely honest, I was a little unprepared for the last bear market last time. We were going through runway crunch and like funding crunch. We really needed people to believe in us in the short term at that time, and it was very hard to find that. What's great about this market for us right now is we're in a spot where we can take some risks and bet still, and like continue basically working on the thesis that we have, which is we do believe that we can solve play to earn gaming. And if we do that, there's a very large opportunity for us out there. Now, what does solving play to earn mean? We talk about this a lot, but we're still just as convinced if we solve this, the opportunity is really big. And what that means is we basically want to solve a system where players are able to earn rewards inside of games, but then still have a sustainable ecosystem. And what that actually looks like is we're kind of working on this metric called return on reward spend. We talk about that a lot, but basically we want to make sure when we give out rewards, we have more spend coming inside of the game than rewards that we give out, right? And that doesn't mean that people can't earn. Basically, you kind of have to think about this like a free-to-play game model, where in free-to-play gaming, people spend money on games, right? Same thing has to happen inside of Web3 gaming. We've always said this, like this is why we talk about monetization and revenue inside of the game so much, because this is one of the key metrics that we're looking at with return on reward spend. But what is better about Web3 gaming than Web2 gaming is nobody earns inside of Web2 gaming. And how I kind of like to view it is, I like to think if we were running a Web2 game company and we wanted to basically increase like certain metrics inside of our game by like 20%, like I kind of like to view Web3 gaming as like, a 20 to 30% advantage against Web2 games. What would that do for our game and our economics? Like how much crazier would the growth of the game be if we had like a 20 to 30% advantage against the Web2 game company in retention, in time to monetization, in like K factor, all of this kind of stuff? And that's the real work of we're doing here at Pixel. So the idea is, and I've been talking about this for a long time, but I think like this last tweet I did this week was probably like the most clear, concise version and pitch of like the bigger, greater Pixel ecosystem. We're working on solving play to earn economies at scale. We're going to share the tech that we're building out in play to earn with other teams. In turn, teams are going to start to give us data to make that tech better. And then we're also going to start working on building out other revenue streams of other tokens. And we're really interested in the idea of, staking rewards and both buyback and burn too. And we want Pixel to kind of be the token that encaptures all of that. Like we want Pixel to be the play to earn token. So, there's a few things that we need to do to get there. That doesn't mean that Pixels is abandoning core game. Our core game is, in my opinion, still our best bet to get to sustainable play to earn. And actually what we find is that you need a game to actually figure out sustainable play to earn. There were a few other companies that were trying to build out sustainable play to earn tech for a long time. A few of them are not really in the game anymore. Or there were even a couple of recent launches that tried to do this too. I don't want to name names, but I actually think some of their thought process and their thesis was really right. G7 might be one of those. I think G7 fundamentally has the right idea. The issue is they don't have a game to go out and do the experimentation with. So we get to kind of build a system to solve play to earn economics with a bunch of data that we get from our own first party game. And we get to go out and experiment in the game real time too. So we can iterate on what works and play to earn much quicker as well. Now, the cool thing is the better that Pixels does and stronger the game is, the closer that we get to our goals with the larger Pixel ecosystem, right? So it's a huge priority with the team. And that does mean we need to do things like make the game better. I also made a comment the other day saying, somebody was like, yeah, but Pixels isn't able to like monetize, like the mindset behind Pixels game is not right. And I would tend to agree. The state of the core Pixels game right now is we probably wouldn't have the same metrics if we did not have the Web3. We definitely would not have the same metrics on core Pixels if we didn't have Web3 components. Now, that shouldn't be a criticism of all Web3 games. Now, where the Pixels team was with core Pixels was we really focused on the Web3 elements even before the Web2 elements. And both of these things together are super important. To be able to build a Web3 game that's actually going to work in the long run, you need to have a game that people would play regardless of the Web3 elements. And Core Pixels is not there right now in its current state, but I and the team are trying to get it there in the next like 3 to 6 months, basically. So on the Core Pixel side, what does that look like? Basically, we're trying to make the game better. That means we also need to be adding in more features besides just taskboard. So a lot of the focus over the next 3 to 6 months on Core Pixels is building out what we call end game features and loops. So that means not taking a little break from the short term. We're still going to try to focus on getting more short-term fixes out that make the game feel and play better in its current state. But we're also going to start taking some bigger swings on new features. So that means things like merchant ships and speed ups and new game loops like that. We're redoing our first-time user experience. We have a new live ops setup that's going out and automated. And that also means things like Chapter 3 and focusing on new end-game content that will strengthen the whole gameplay. One of the issues that we have inside of the game right now, specifically around land and a lot of other features like that too, is that the really only tool that we have to work with when it comes to game features is tweaking things that use the task board. Basically like sending more tier 3 and tier 4 resources into the task board, which is something that we'll start to experiment with pretty soon. But other than that, our tool set is kind of limited when it comes to end game play. So we're taking some bigger swings on more compelling end game features that kind of close some of these loops in the long run. And then that's the idea with Core Pixels. And then basically next step is, we do actually have some really good play to earn tech that we've been using. If we had a stronger core game, like our work on returnable or sustainable play to earn would probably be much easier. So good news is we're making Pixels better. That's where 80% of team resources are focused right now. We also have a new game that will be coming out pretty soon. The Pets app is getting close to getting done. We'll get that out in early access, maybe as early as this month, maybe next month. Our plan with Pet app rollout is basically we are going to be rolling it out first to NFT holders inside of Pixels. So that will likely mean Pixels pet owners and Pixels landowners. This game will be in early access. Really, the idea is we just want to get feedback from you guys on what you guys think and how it works and how it plays. We want to kind of test our core metrics inside of the game. But yeah, it'll be fun. I'm super excited about it. The intention behind this app is we kind of want to build it like a Web2 Trojan horse. So the idea is really to build a funnel into Pixels through this. This kind of app can reach like millions and millions of users inside of Web2. And we're not trying to reinvent the wheel too much when it comes to the Pets app. But the thing is, we think that we can enhance the growth and the KPIs through the game with Web3 elements. Imagine, again, that key thesis here of take a Web2 game and see if you can increase the metric by like 20 to 30%. It doesn't sound like that much, but in Web2 games, their margins are so small. If you can increase something like day 7 retention by 20%, that is a killer app that will grow a ton. And then the idea is to kind of monetize it in other ways as well. But really, it's focused on the Web2 audience. We're going to grow ecosystem that way. And then what's also cool is you're going to start to see other games join the Pixel ecosystem. We did our first publishing deal with Pixel Dungeons, and they've been performing very, very well, especially when it comes to return on reward spend. I posted some of their metrics the other day, but yeah, their revenue is going crazy. They've burned over like 2 million pixels, or let me do the math again, over like 1.5 million pixel just in the last week. Just pretty impressive. So yeah, good job to that team. And what's cool is we're going to start to add other games that are maybe not even like directly Pixels related to the ecosystem as well too. Now, Pixels has a couple of advantages in the marketplace right now, even like broader Web3 market. I know that market is down and like, truthfully, Pixel token price is down, but we're still at a significantly larger market cap than most other Web3 game tokens right now. And it gives us a lot of advantages when it comes to user acquisition and giving out rewards to people, right? Like that's a big moat. Most other games still can't compete with that, which is an interesting sell to join the Pixels ecosystem right now. One of the things that we might start to do is we might start to give other games Pixel tokens to go out and acquire users. And then the deal is what they'll have to do is they'll have to give us some data back so we can build out our, play to earn AI models. It's funny, AI is such a buzzword and I don't really love that buzzword, but it is kind of like AI. What we're doing on the play to earn side. Basically, we're building like a giant model that kind of figures out when we give a reward to a user, what do they do with it and how does it benefit the ecosystem? And that's actually very valuable tech to other games. So they're going to help us train these models with more and more data points from other games. We'll give them some pixel, and in exchange, when we have staking out, what we'll do is we'll start to give out staking rewards from these games revenue as well too. And the other really cool thing is when we start to have these models, really dialed in, what we can do is we can start to build out revenue of other tokens and even use that for things like buybacks or things like rewards to stakers in other currencies too. That's not just diluting pixel. So that's kind of the high level. It all goes into staking. We're going to have official staking documents out by like mid-month. Staking, it's still on track. It looks like late March, early April is going to be the target date for that. But I'm super excited about it. What we're doing with staking is quite novel. It's interesting because I think we have similar theses to like G7 and B3, but we have advantages, with actual games and partners that are live coming out into the ecosystem too. So expect that kind of stuff. And then, yeah, we're still looking at other publishing and M&A opportunities. We're still in a very strong position for that. And I think you're going to see some bigger swings from us there in the next couple of months as well. So that's kind of the ecosystem update. There's going to be a lot of questions that we can dive into because I know there were some staking questions in this list that Heidi had. There were some like broader ecosystem questions. There were some land questions. We'll dive into all of that. I'm not going to take up too much time rambling today.
I'll just share the. It'll be easiest this way and we can go through it. Okay, is that good? Can you guys read that?
Nice. Okay, Web3 Shark. When governance timelines will Pixel's team be allowed to touch Pixel Foundation tokens without approval from the public? M&A has been spoken about recently. How will they be funded? From what money? Team money or community money? Okay, so a couple of things. Governance timelines. So there's a large community treasury now, which is great. Basically, what we've been doing is just sending basically all revenue in game to a community treasury. How this works right now is 80% of revenue gets sent to community treasury inside of the game, and 20% gets sent back into ecosystem rewards so we can start acquiring more users with that revenue, right? What this does is when we start hitting the return on reward spend over 1, we can start actually like piling even more and more of that like revenue back into like acquiring more users and figuring out the fundamentals there. So we promised governance about like roughly 12 months after TGE. We're about roughly 12 months after TGE now. And yeah, we're working on the stages of governance. Basically, there's like a bit of legal that we need to get done. We basically need to help set up a like DAO structure and legal entity. Team's moving on that now. There's really not an intended delay there, but there is some stuff that we need to get done for that to actually happen. I know that some other people have delayed that in previous circumstances, and there's maybe some scar tissue from that. Intention is not to delay that. But what I will say with governance, the community treasury, is we do want to set ground rules around governance. That'll be some of what we recommend to the DAO. And I think it'll be smart to have kind of like almost like a constitution on the community treasury and set some guidelines around that. Like a good example is what would not be so good is if the community voted on like basically like putting all the tokens all at once into the market, right? Or just like selling all the tokens into the market at once. That would probably not be good for the community to do that. And there's maybe some guardrails that we can add to community governance that could protect against that, right? Like for example, we could say hard rule on community governance is, you can only sell or do like something with like 5 to 10% of treasury a month, right? That puts some guardrails around that, where you only unlock 5 to 10% of treasury a month to go out and do ecosystem initiatives, guardrails. And we'll probably start to introduce some stuff like that in governance. So community treasury is the community's choice of what they want to do with it. Now, note there are many different types of people who hold the Pixel token. Team has no Pixel tokens yet, but the team will start getting some allocation on March 15th in 10 days. So we'll be a part of the governance, but that's how we'll kind of work on that. Now, Foundation has its own allocation of tokens. Part of that is the ecosystem allocation, right? And Foundation is an independent organization. Basically, the Foundation's mission statement is to basically solve and grow play to earn and get more and more people exposed to play to earn. So the Foundation's made some already strategic investments into a few things. Like a good example of a foundation initiative was the Pixels Dungeon publishing deal, right? So the foundation has allocation in both ecosystem and treasury, and it uses its allocation of Pixel to make some moves like that, right? And then there is a bit of a treasury there too, where we're kind of using the foundation's using some of the funds to make strategic moves like that, basically. Intention is basically we want to grow the ecosystem, make it sustainable, and yeah, that's the foundation's end goal. So yeah, I hope that answered those questions. More details on staking, please. Oh, did you have something?
No, I was just looking for the next question. Staking, go off.
More details on staking. Yeah, so staking is what I just described. It's kind of hard to visualize it. So we're gonna work on making it like very easy to like see how it works. But basically how staking is going to work is you can kind of view what the Pixel ecosystem is as its own network, right? And the Pixel ecosystem is basically a network that is trying to grow just like any Web3 network is. Like, you know, the Ethereum network is a world computer that is trying to basically build out the largest world computer out there. Same thing with Solana, right? And how these computers and these networks work is they're secured by stakers who are basically providing security through validators. And how you can view our network of play to earn is our network is secured by good data, right? So what that means is basically in order for the Pixel ecosystem to succeed, we need to make sure that rewards are given out to people who are helping grow the ecosystem. And how do we actually give out rewards to people who grow the ecosystem well? What we need to do is we need to actually get really good data on what users do with their tokens and who the right people to give them to are, right? It's interesting because there's been like a bot conversation being like Pixel's team likes bots. Pixel's team doesn't do anything about bots because they're actually good for the Pixels network. They're really bad for us, guys. Our key goal here basically is to make sure that we're giving out tokens to people who help grow the ecosystem. And bots are really bad for the Pixels ecosystem because what are they trying to do? We have one metric that we're looking at as the Pixels team right now to evaluate ecosystem success. And that's this metric called return on reward spend, right? What we want to do is we want to make sure that we're giving out tokens to people who help grow the game and ecosystem. And a really easy way to kind of look at what that is like right now is that metric return on reward spend. It's a measure of it's the simplest metric. Basically, you look at how many tokens are given out each month from the ecosystem and how many tokens are spent each month from the ecosystem. Now, what does a bot do? A bot tries to take as many tokens out of the ecosystem as possible and spend as little as possible. Their return on reward spend is the lowest out of any type of user, right? So giving tokens to bots really hurts our return on reward spend. And our goal is to get a return on reward spend of over 1 as quick as possible. If we hit that, it opens up a lot of interesting avenues for us when it comes to growth and revenue and doing things like we want to do. If we hit a return on reward spend of over 1, here's what we can start to do. We can start to basically start to sell some of this like AI stuff that we've been working on to other teams because it's going to be very, very useful to other teams, basically. How I view the larger Web3 stack is I think there's a bunch of teams that are building really important things in Web3 gaming right now. I think Pirate Nation is a really good example of a team that has been building out really great infrastructure on how to actually get more game mechanics on chain. I think Gabe Layden from Limit Break is building out really important infrastructure on how to add more mechanics for tokens that might help them sink and burn easier. The thing that we've been focused on is the data science side. When you actually give out rewards to people, what do they do with them? And how do you actually give out rewards to the best people? All three of these things actually probably need to work together in the perfect Web3 game in like a year or two, right? Like, honestly, I love the idea of app tokens, and we'll probably start working with more games using app tokens. If you're using an app token made by Limit Break, our tech will really help you also still target the rewards properly too. And you might want more stuff on chain from the stuff that Pirate Nation has been building too. It's like all a piece of the stack, right? And what's great is a lot of Web3 teams who are building the cool stuff. They've all been focused on like their little own area. Our area is data science, reward attribution, and figuring out like reward optimization, basically. It's really important tech. So how staking is going to work basically is To secure this network, we need more data from more games to kind of build out the best reward attribution ecosystem as possible. You're going to start to see other games join the Pixel ecosystem. And how it's going to work is you're actually going to be able to stake Pixel to these other games. And what they'll do is when we allow other games to join the network, they're going to kind of act like a validator or a node. And what does a node do in a normal ecosystem or network? They help secure the network, right? And for us, good data and people spending the token more is securing this network, right? So when you go out to stake, you're actually going to be able to choose a game that you stake to. You'll be able to stake to core pixels. You'll be able to stake to Pixel Dungeons. You'll be able to stake to the Pixels Pet game and even more third-party games that we're not launching that want to kind of help join this network, get more tokens to give out to users to experiment with their own game. And what you're going to get back in return is you're going to get a portion of the monetization that these games have. So for example, the Pixels ecosystem did 20 million in revenue in 2024. It's pretty cool, right? If you stake to Pixels, you're going to start to be able to get rewards back based on stuff like that. And what's great is there's a lot of other games that are coming out that actually have really good games. They honestly might be competitive against Pixels when it comes to the amount of revenue that they can generate. But what's cool is we're going to start to be able to help them, and they'll be able to help us too. And basically, all people in the ecosystem get rewarded. The thing that I look for in any ecosystem is basically how do we create win-win-win scenarios between everybody where everybody wins? And this is one of those examples. Like they can basically use us to help bootstrap their initial game to go out and experiment with rewards. And then people who are staking Pixel get to benefit in that too. So that's kind of the idea there. We're going to give more information on this, like written down. It'll be much easier to see. But the whole user experience should be quite simple. Basically, when you go to stake Pixel, what you're going to do is you're just going to go to our staking.pixels.xyz dashboard. You'll choose a game, and then you'll get to see like potential rewards that you might get based on historicals, all of that. And we'll be able to generate kind of like a pseudo APR through this. So that's kind of the idea. Loon asked, when Pixels run a validator? Some people might start to see that we actually just started spinning up a validator this week. So that will actually be a part of what we're doing here. So Pixels, core Pixels is going to start a Ronin validator. This belongs to the core Pixels like ecosystem. And when I say core Pixels, I mean the Pixels online game. I keep saying core Pixels because I want to kind of like make sure that you guys understand core Pixels is different than Dungeons, it's different than Pets, it's different than anything else going on here. Core Pixels refers to Pixel_online, Pixels.xyz, the game that you play. And rewards from the validator will basically be used to augment rewards from Pixel staking also. So we'll probably start giving out that validator rewards that we get to Pixel stakers. And we might even do some things like give you reputation if you stake to the Pixels Ronin validator. But expect that basically. We want basically all of the revenue or all of the rewards that Pixels is getting from the Pixel validator on Ronin to go back to people who are staking Pixel.
Okay, when Rocky. We're working on it. You know what's really funny? This is behind the scenes information. I wasn't paying much attention to Ronki, and I honestly thought it was just a token. And then KG messaged me like a week ago, being like, "Hey, can we integrate Ronki into Pixels?" And I was like, "No," because integrating avatars that go off of tokens is incredibly difficult. Like I know we did it for the Ron token. And it's not easy. It's not something that we can easily do. So I was like, no, we're not doing that. And then I realized a week or like a few days ago, wait, this is actually a NFT collection. We can absolutely do this. So I messaged KG and I was like, we can absolutely integrate this. And he's like, oh, I'm already working on it with Luke. I was like, good, great. So anyways, we're just waiting on the art. It's almost done. I've pinged the chat a few times. I think it's almost done, and then they'll be live. So I don't have an exact timeline for you, but I would say, given everything goes smoothly, it should be in this week.
Yeah. So there's what I will say is there is something there with the meme communities. I think there's something interesting. I want to rethink how we're doing guilds a little bit. I think there might be something interesting of like integrating meme coins into guilds. If you guys have any ideas on what that would look like, because I don't want to like take away utility from shard memberships. There's something there though. Like what if you could buy a Pixels Guild shard in a meme coin? Like that might be the actual way to do it. So we're thinking about that.
Do you consider increasing taskbar rewards since marketplace items have also become more expensive?
So that was intentional. So what people, it's interesting. Inflation is kind of fun until it's not, right? People keep bringing up Barry a lot lately, but Barry was inflating 3% a day. I don't think people understand how crazy 3% inflation a day is. But basically, Barry was a ticking time bomb. And then there was also an issue with resource inflation inside of the game that we had to fix as well, where resources were inflating like crazy. Now, the whole point of Chapter 2.5 updates is we want to make it so that resources were more worth getting. So some of you guys play task board just by only buying items in the marketplace, right? What some of these Chapter 2.5 changes did was it made it more worth it to go out and get the items yourself, right? And that's kind of the whole point of the Chapter 2.5 updates. So I made a post earlier of what we're thinking about when it comes to endgame. There's kind of two ways that we're attacking this right now. So some of their issues around like land and the gameplay right now is like it was a little bit, it wasn't working in the way that we kind of wanted it to in the initial stages. Let me bring up this tweet. So there's kind of two things that we've been thinking about.
Can you zoom in?
Yeah, there's a read option, right?
I don't know. Did they get rid of them?
Maybe. Okay, so all of this is related to like not just land, but the entire gameplay. Basically, we need to build out new features that use the resources that aren't just task board. So the first thing that we had to fix was the supply side on resources and coins. In Chapter 1 and a lot of Chapter 2, resources were wildly inflating. And it's interesting because people actually loved inflation for a long time. Like I was saying, like even if you view US economy, like in the US economy in like 2021 and 2022, there was really bad inflation, but it was kind of fun for a lot of people for a long time, right? Until it wasn't. And then basically inflation got like a little bit out of control. And in the US economy, you know, they had to kind of go out and like do some austerity measures that fix it and increase interest rates. So that's not so fun. We kind of had our own issues with that in the Pixels economy, where basically we had to fix the supply side of resources. And we actually made a lot of really good progress on this. This is a chart that I keep bringing up a lot, but this is coin inflation, and resource inflation looks a lot like this in the last 12 months in Pixels, where it was kind of bad in Chapter 2 or 1. This is around Chapter 1. This is the release of Chapter 2. Then Chapter 2, coin inflation got really bad too. And then we basically fixed it. Coin inflation is actually very under control now, and so is resource inflation too. So we fixed the supply side. Now, that's not the total fix that we needed to fix all the issues inside of Chapter 2 and like what we're doing here. The next side is the demand side. So what we're also working on is we're working on more endgame features. The idea that we need to work on is basically like the only mechanism that we have on the demand side right now for resources is through the task board. And that's fine. We can do a bunch of short-term fixes here. Like for example, one thing that we're going to start to do is we're going to start to have more tier 3 and tier 4 resources appear on more people's task boards, regardless of if you're the level or not. We're going to see how that affects some of the core metrics, but it's a good experiment to run, right? To see if we can start to increase aggregate demand of things like tier 4 and tier 3 and tier 4 resources. But the real solution here is we also need new game features that use these resources too, right? Like there's some band-aid solutions that we can do, like basically, you know, showing more tier 3 and tier 4 through more levels inside of the task board. But the right way to fix these issues too is by adding in more features that use tier 3 and tier 4 resources and give you more compelling reasons to go out and play the game in the long run and in the end game too. And this is kind of some of the short-term pain that we're going to need to go through because the team actually has to get these out. But what's great is we have a bunch of features lined up over the next 3 to 6 months. So the first feature that will be coming out is merchant ships, Merchant ships will be kind of tier 3 and tier 4 heavy when it comes to resources. And the end goal here in merchant ships is we want to give you guys more things to work towards in the game besides just going through task board and besides just earning pixel. Like there might be other things you guys want to go and get. The other thing that we're working on is we're finally going to start focus on chapter 3. And chapter 3 is going to introduce more end game content too. Basically, we want things that you guys can compete for that are, quite rare and hard to get. So that will be this new concept of contestable land. Now, again, don't freak out landowners on contestable land. Basically, you're going to have to use some of the end game content through NFT lands, like tier 3 and tier 4 resources, basically to go out and compete for this new type of temporary land that might have really exclusive industries or resources on them. So a good example would be basically like a tier 5 resource generator that's on a contestable land. Now, the contestable land will be off-chain. It's not going to dilute your NFT land, and it's going to be temporary too. So it's only going to last for a season or so, and then it's going to disappear, and you're going to have to go out and compete for the next NFT land. That's kind of the idea. So that's on the like next 3 to 6 month timeline, basically. I think we can probably start to get out like a good MVP of contestable land. Hopefully in like 3 months is going to be the goal. What we were working a lot on over the last month or two is figuring out how we can get more end game features out without having them be like crazy in spec. So like a good example is if we wanted to go out and add combat inside of the game, that would probably be like a 6 to 9 month project to get combat around like basically this contestable land system. There's actually ways that we can start to introduce that contestable land system without anything that's like too crazy to get this loop closed. And then we can start focusing on some features like combat or something else like that in like a chapter 4, basically. And then in the meantime too, the team's been talking about like a lot of other features as well. Pendeco just brought up cross-item pollination.
I don't know if I pinned it here. I'll find it again.
Yeah, there's also short-term fixes that are going to be coming out like that too. So one of the other things that's annoying that we don't like right now is there's actually not that much recipe depth inside of the game, and there's not like a lot of cross-pollination and different recipes inside of the game too. Like that's actually something that's coming out now. Like the team's working on basically new recipes inside of the game that we use like different industries, and there's like more things to do in between the levels coming up as well. That was an easier fix that's going to be coming out in the short term as well. So I would totally agree with Pendeco. That's prioritized in the short term.
Yeah, and I just saw that they followed up with, I hope I'm not too annoying. Guys, none of your messages are ever annoying. The only ones that are annoying is when they're spam. Like, don't spam the chat, please. Like, if you have a question, you can ask it multiple times, that's fine. But don't, like, spam it because it just causes issues for other people to be able to see what's going on and whatever. So, but yeah, ask away. We appreciate all of your comments and questions. Okay, let's see here. The next
one. This is a good question, and this is actually very important. So some of the stuff that we're working on next is we're going to try to onboard people that are not in crypto Twitter. So one thing that we started working on was this Pixels Mindshare thing. And what we're doing is this will probably go live at the end of this week. It's not live yet, but I showed you guys this before. Yeah, we're basically scraping a bunch of different content that's getting posted about us on Twitter. Now, this has not been running 24/7, but the idea here is we want to start rewarding content creation on different platforms. X/Twitter was the easiest first platform to work on here, but I would agree that X/Twitter is also not the best long-term platform either. How most other games grow is through Instagram, through TikTok, and other platforms like that. Now, I've always thought about our approach in the short term as, Web3 gamers are the easiest ones to onboard initially, people who already have some kind of Web3 experience, because you don't have to kind of convince them why Web3 is interesting. You don't have to like show them how to download a wallet. Like they're kind of willing to go out and do that. But we also need to build an audience of users who, kind of love the games that we're building in like the Web2 sense too. And we need to start attracting users there. That's one big advantage of the Pet app, right? We're going to be targeting primarily Web2 gamers through the Pet app. I kind of like to view the Pet app as a Trojan horse into Web3. So we're kind of the plan with the Pet app is basically we're going to gate if there is an earning mechanism towards like very late end game inside the pet app, like you might have to hit like 180-day login bonus inside the pet app to even access any earn opportunity. And it's going to be mostly targeted towards Web2 people. But the thing is, we're going to be able to reward you for going out and like trying the app, referring people and getting people in, so we can boost some of the core metrics that we want. And we're going to push growth towards that kind of audience here. And what's also great is there's a lot of other games that will be joining Pixel ecosystem soon that can attract different types of users as well through this staking mechanism that we described earlier. So kind of the idea is like we do need to go out and start to attack other like Web2 audiences and other social networks. Core Pixels, it's not where it needs to be yet. And the team is pushing to get to like a Web2 state in the next like 3 to 6 months, basically. So there's a couple things we've been doing on Core Pixels to make sure that it's ready for Web2 growth. One of the things that we're doing is we're reworking our onboarding. Right now, the onboarding is crazy. It's not good. And I think a lot of you know that. I showed this chart the other day. Let me see if I can pull it up because it's hilarious. Once we saw this, it's like user journeys, this one.
The one that shows like the actual numbers.
Yeah, let me see if I can find this.
I love that. And everyone tweeted about it. They're like, look, I'm on here. And I was so excited.
But no. What I was trying to show was
not that one.
Accessible. No, what I was trying to show was basically the like onboarding flow that we had mapped out. There are something like 82.
That was crazy, yeah.
Yeah, there's something like 82 steps in our onboarding flow right now. Like you have to go through 82 different steps to start actually playing the Pixels game. And that is crazy inside of Web2 gaming. Like a Web2 game, they have like 10 steps and their tutorial is like 30 seconds tops because people have very small attention spans. It's interesting because I think the Web3 audience, you guys are impatient in some aspects and you're also very patient in others. Like you guys are really willing to go through some hoops to actually go out and play a game. And you guys are willing to like put up with a lot of stuff in Web3 gaming that Web2 gamers would never put up with. And we need to get that better before we start growing in the Web2 side of things. So that's been a big team push. We have a lot of stuff that's coming out soon there.
Okay. I did just tweet that I'm going to give away an integrated avatar during this AMA just to switch it up, have some fun. And I just went to go choose a random one, but I want to hear what you guys want. I have a bunch of mystical alpacas, Legends of Athena, Chickverse, Mysticat, Piggies. What else do we have here? I know I have some Dizzy Dragons, Legends of Athena, Altea. Sorry, I always read it as Athena. It's not. It's Altea or something like that. Pixel Cat Club. I have some Grain Glitchers, Ghost Mania. Let me know. I think I have more. Corgis. I've got a lot of corgis. Corgis are cute. Yeah, let me know in the chat what one you think we should give away. Okay. Back to it.
What a boring long term. Guys, yeah, sometimes it's not as flashy, right? But like the real thing with the long term that we're working on is fundamentals, right? I don't know. I have the core belief that good guys will win in the long run, right? The heroes always win in the long run eventually, right? You might lose a battle or two. But what we're really trying to build here is something that works, right? So we're not trying to build like a Ponzi game or mechanic. And what that means is we actually need to build stuff that fundamentally works. So how do Web2 games fundamentally work? Like they need to go out, build revenue, and like become profitable, right? Now, what's cool is we have a fully Web3 model when it comes to economics, right? Where we can reward players who are in the game and ecosystem, but also we do need to think about like, you know, profitability from the token perspective, right? Here's the end goal. What we want to do is we want to basically be able to grow the game, give rewards to stakers, and then even do things like buybacks and burns when, you know, that's actually possible. In order to do that, what we need to do is we need to, you know, make the game as good as possible and then build out the ecosystem the way that we're also building out tooling and infrastructure that other teams want to use and are willing to pay for. Like, for example, here's the most clear-cut, easy example. If we're able to solve this return on reward spend and play to earn problem, there are a lot of other teams that we want to basically use this tech. And if we help them distribute their rewards 10% more efficiently, right? Like if we can stop another team from giving out 10% of their tokens to bots, it's easy for us to justify a 1% rake of that, right? Like if we charge them 10% of the efficiency that we increase, we can go out and use that for things like a buyback or a reward for a staker. And that's kind of the idea behind the ecosystem and like what we're doing there. Maybe it's boring, but we're trying to build something that works, right? And we have a pretty good shot at doing this. Is all I'm going to say.
Okay. I keep seeing Dizzy and Alpaca, so I'm going to go look at all of those and pick one.
More details on game update from release notes yesterday on recipe balances. Do you have details on that, Heidi?
I don't. Let me look into it.
Okay. When updates on soil?
Yeah, this one, what they're asking for is that as soon as a crop dies, they can as soon as a crop is ready to harvest, that the soil will be usable again. So I think internally we've agreed that this is totally fine. So it's just about like getting it done. So I would expect this change coming in the next like several weeks.
Yeah. So here's some internal like how the sausage is made stuff that we're working on basically. If you look at release logs, we're getting a lot of stuff done. Now what we're trying to make sure that the team is on the same page about is we want to make sure that there's a needle moving update every single week if we can, right? Some of these bug fixes that we're doing are good. Sometimes some of these patches that we're doing are good. Now the team needs to reprioritize and make sure that like every single thing is needle moving. I would say that this soil update is a needle moving feature. So my company directive internally is like, guys, this is the important stuff in the short term. Let's make sure that we're getting some actually good stuff out every single week. We have been updating weekly. That was a big improvement from a couple of months ago, right? Now it's going to be making sure that we're doing the right stuff weekly too. And this is the kind of stuff that's quite important. Basically, these like quality of life improvements and these things that make the game feel better. Good example would also be like kind of reworking how the windmill works, and like more tier 3 and tier 4 in the task force. These are short-term things that like, the team should be getting out more consistently. And that's going to be the next, like, that is the focus now, basically. How do we get an update out like that every single week? In addition to the long term, if I want to like transparently give you the list of priorities, the number one priority inside of team and company right now is we need to make sure that the game is getting better fundamentally and we're building out the right long-term stuff. So that's things like merchant ships and speed ups and chapter 3. That's going to come first, and that's the highest priority. That doesn't mean that we can't get this other stuff out consistently either, and we're going to get those kinds of updates out as well. Somebody asked about the discount for buying VIP in the future. Yeah, that should be. Is that not in already? That should be in now.
Yeah, that should work because it's a pixel feature. So can someone go check for that?
Yeah, we'll double check on that. But if that's not in now, then that should go out live next update.
Yeah. Okay, when chapter 3, we already talked about this a lot earlier. So I feel like we can just skip forward. When sword bomb magic fights in pixels.
Okay, so here's how I view our like roadmap, right? So chapter 3, it's gonna be more economic gameplay, right? We're working on a new feature that's kind of gonna be like you have to go out and search for these contestable lands or these lands that are out there. And you might have to go out and like kind of I think the framing that we're going to do it is either like a spaceship or something like that. I think there's like still a little debate on how we're theming it. But you're basically going to have to like collect parts for a spaceship or something like that. Send out a spaceship to go find this contestable land. The theming might change. Maybe it's going to be more like you have to build like this magic drill that tunnels through Terra Villa or something like that. But basically the core concept is there'll be a new mechanic and a new feature where you go out and you build something and then go send out missions. And then you might actually find a contestable land. That's going to kind of be like the short term chapter 3. The other thing that we've been talking about when it comes to like new features is this is not really like a chapter feature, but something we're also working on is more automation inside of the game. So we're actually going to try a couple different solutions here with automation. One thing that we're trialing right now is we're actually going to be working with another company, and we're going to be experimenting with like an AI agent inside of the game. The first AI agent stuff that we do inside of the game, it'll kind of be just like a quest and like a short little event. But the tech that we're building there is maybe going to be used for an AI agent that does something like maybe help you farm. There's a bit of proof of concepting that we need to do to see if this is actually the right thing and the right way to do it. But there's also other ways that you can do automation too. Things like in-game sprinklers, things like like a chainsaw that chops trees down automatically. So there's kind of two directions that we'll be experimenting with automation, and that'll kind of be like the like 3.5 idea. This kind of stuff like sword, magic fights, that's cool. I want us to do that badly because I love RuneScape style mechanics. Like I grew up playing RuneScape. I think that the higher priority in the short term is short to medium term is getting more end game content that's not just task board, and then we can focus on like a bigger swing like that once we have some of those in place.
Okay. Taco sauce. So this is something we've been discussing internally. So I don't have any details that I can share publicly yet on that, but it's something that we've been talking about. When's Sports season 3? Okay, so what I'm gonna just mention to this one, we can't dive into it too much, but basically we're with these live ops events, like we have a full live ops team now. We're really focusing on repeatable events. Sports is one. However, we've ran it twice now in two very, very different ways. And I think we need to find some sort of happy middle ground. So I think in like a retrospective call that we'll discuss options for this. And then once we kind of come to a conclusion, we can talk more about it publicly. But for right now, there's nothing solidly planned because we need to like really have some discussions internally about that. Okay.
Well, Pixel go back to 5 cents, or it's the new SLP. Guys, Pixel and SLP worked very differently, right? All I can say on this, we can't really talk about price, but I can talk about incentive alignment. I've not sold a single Pixel yet. I haven't even gotten a single Pixel yet. And same with team and everybody else, right? So how a lot of the space works is a lot of founders, what they'll do is they can sell locked tokens when there's a big successful launch, right? Like I probably could have done that. I probably could have cashed out like tens of millions at peak pixel price, right? I didn't want to do that. I thought that was kind of morally wrong. And I actually think it's disgusting when founders do that, to be completely honest. Even though tokens are locked, some founders go out and cash out early. All I'm going to say is like team is here and we're incentivized, and that's all I can say basically. But the team incentives are right. That's all I can say on that. Next question. You always say that Pixel team is doing a great job, but none of us have any idea who is on your team. Perhaps you need to introduce some of your game developers. I am sorry, but you guys lost that privilege with all the death threats that me and Heidi get. Yeah, we can't dox any of the rest of the team. What I can say is the team is super talented now. I think an unfortunate reality is like the team back in like June when Chapter 2 was out was not the right team to be building the Web 2 quality game that we needed. Different team is good at different stages of company building, right? And the Pixels team was 12 full-time people when we got to TGE, which is kind of crazy. We were grinders. We did the impossible, right? We had one of the most successful like gaming launches of all time, which is pretty cool. But it also caught up with us because we didn't have the Web 2 experience that we needed on the team at that time. And I would say now that we have a really good combo of that now. We have the original core grinders on the team, and now we also have people that came from like very good Web 2 foundations. Like we have ex Roblox, ex Scopely, a lot of ex RuneScape on the team now. It's pretty cool. And yeah, I wish we could have them be a bit more involved, but there's also like a bit of protecting that we need to do with the team too, because Web3 is a brutal, brutal place. There are some concerns that this event, the Harvest Hustle event in particular, is favorable for bots and auto clickers. Can you maybe explain the impact of bot prevention tech during and after the event on the leaderboard? Okay, so the bot thing is a complicated issue because we talk about this a lot. There's a few different things that we look at with bots, and there's different types of bots and there's different types of cheating. So one issue with bots is there's a class of people that will make like huge multi accounts, right? Like they're able to make 1,000 accounts into a game, and then they're able to like take advantage of an event that way. There's another class of like cheater inside of the game that uses an auto clicker, right? They may be AFK on their one real account, and then they have an auto clicker. That's two different types of cheaters. And there's two different ways to detect that and look at that. What I'll say is all of this is much easier when you have a list of people and you're able to do a detection on the end of an event. So we're going to make sure that the leaderboard is fair in Harvest Hustle. We're looking at this stuff. We'll do our best at real-time prevention, but then there's also some time that we'll have after the event's over where we'll be able to go through this kind of stuff too. What we do with bot prevention is there's a couple of different things we look at. One, like we do look at click rate. That's a pretty easy way to go and look at this. Also, yeah, you can't, it's tricky because you can't tell people what you're going to do and look at. So I can't give all the details, but what we have gotten pretty good at lately is that mass account creation detection. It takes a little bit of time. And sometimes what you'll see is somebody will create 1,000 accounts, keep them dormant for like a couple of months, and then they reactivate them. So you might see some like old accounts sometimes doing things like going through apiaries, things like this. My take on this is it takes like a couple weeks for our detection to kind of go out and actually find that type of account sometimes. We have some cool automated ways to do that. What we also look at is actual impact and like what they're doing too. One of the easier ways to detect a bot, actually, what we found is, what are they doing with their end result? If you go out and see what a bot does, is they're trying to min-max their pixel earnings, right? And what we found with smart taskboard features is one of the most effective things that we've done in bot prevention lately is even if somebody creates a bot, we really nerf their earnings inside of the game now. A lot of what you need to do with bot prevention and detection is also attack their economics. If a bot is able to make money inside of the game, then yeah, they're going to keep trying to do it. If you start to nerf their earnings, that's the best way to actually approach this. Because we do a lot on like network and hardware fingerprinting. Like I know some people don't think we do anything there. That's totally not true. We actually posted the stats. We've banned millions of bot accounts, and now we have millions of accounts labeled bot, not bot inside of the game. And it gives us a really good data set to kind of do similarity grouping on bot accounts. Like basically we can look at the data, see, okay, this is what a bot typically looks like. This is what they typically do. And this is kind of the outcome they achieve. And we can start to do something called prediction on bot accounts too. It's not 100% perfect, but it's really good. And what we can do is use that prediction even to start to nerf earnings too. So on Harvest Hustle in particular, we'll also make sure that we do like a really deep dive into all of the leaderboard earners, especially when there's only like a certain amount of accounts to look at when it comes to like top people on leaderboard. That gives us a much easier and narrow target to look at. Same thing will be happening on sports before we start to give out seasonal rewards. We're going to go through all of the problem guilds. We know that there's a couple that are especially problematic. And yeah, do you want to describe to people what we're going to be doing with the sports rewards when we start to go?
Yeah. So if so rewards should go out in next week at some point for the seasonal rewards. The weekly rewards were already distributed on Monday, as always. For accounts that are flagged, their contributions to their guild will be removed. So we think that's the fairest path to take. So yeah. Okay. We have 2 minutes left, a few more questions, and we need to do the giveaway. So I'm gonna
guys, this is absolutely hold up. So I tell people I haven't received a single pixel token yet, and people think that's bearish for some reason. It's like, oh no, I don't. All the team will get monthly installations of their token over the next 3 years, right? So they don't even get them all at once. They get 1/36 of their token for the next 3 years. I don't understand that you can interpret that as anything but extremely bullish, because it means the team's incentives are aligned in the long term, right? So, I mean, you can interpret it how you want, right? Like, I think sometimes in a bad market, people look at anything and try to be like, team is doing everything wrong. This is one of those things that the team, I will stand by this 100%. Like, FUD me all you want. This is like the most bullish thing that we could possibly be doing for the team or long term of the ecosystem, to make sure that the team is aligned in the long term also with the incentives. So yeah, I mean, my whole thing here is I don't want to do anything here besides doing it the right way, right? I wouldn't feel good if I'm making money in building this if I was doing something that felt like morally, ethically, or like, dishonorable. I refuse to sacrifice my values for money or anything that we're doing here. We're here for the long term, and yeah, we're building out for the long term too.
Okay, I don't think we have time to go through the rest of them. Some of them were quicker questions, but return on reward spend was the bigger one in there. But we talk about about that a lot publicly, so you can probably find some other content or someone to fill you in on that, or just literally search "written by Luke" on Twitter, RORS, and you'll find some stuff. Okay, here's the alpaca that we're going to be giving away. So how we do giveaways on YouTube is a little chaotically. I have my handy mouse here and I go like this over the chat, which includes YouTube live chat and Twitter live chat. And then I randomly stop it and I click on a post. So we're going to do that. I know I thought this alpaca was really cute. You know, it's a little like, it has some like anger in it, you know, which I feel like is the vibe of the season right now. So let's do it. Okay. All right, let's do this. Let me just open the right area. Sorry, hold on. I don't have, okay, we're doing it. We're spinning, we're stopping. Hello, Squish. Hello, Squish. Okay, yeah, what you need to do now is go on our Discord and convince me that your Discord account is your Twitter account, and we will send you the mystical alpaca. It is on Polygon, so make sure you send me a Polygon address. Although I think Ron supports ETH now, so they probably all work. But yes, congratulations. And yeah, thank you all for your questions. Today it was a good one. You guys asked a lot of good stuff. And this format was kind of fun. I think we can do it like this once in a while. Just ask on Twitter and get questions like that. Yeah, great. Okay, awesome. Congratulations, Squish. And we will see you guys next time.
Thanks, everyone.